So this is why Pulsechain is so important. You can't do DeFi for very long on Ethereum before you feel this developer pain, basically pinching them of costs to not only just to develop these contracts and put them out there, but more the users who are not able to. So basically, like for Hex, for example, if you were to put Hex on Pulsechain, you could do a daily staking. You could literally stake a day and stake a day and stake. That's cool. If you do it on Ethereum today, maybe you would only pick monthly stake or yearly stake because it's just not cost efficient for a user anymore. And with Pulsechain, we're able to expand things like Hex to what Top Gun said was the secondary layer is built on top of the money, which is more like a tradable bond. And then they're going to put another layer on top of that and make it more like a derivative. You can keep going and users aren't going to feel that friction.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to retain their profits by participating in DeFi that doesn't have these speed bumps every time you're trying to do anything. Like literally, I used to do more LPing on Ethereum, and it was getting to the point where putting something in cost me $150 to $500. And so now I got to put in 10 grand to 20 grand in order just to make sure, and I got to leave it in there for a while, which means I can't compound it just to make sure I'm getting back my 500 or more dollars to get in and get out. So this is what killed a lot of the DeFi movement, and I think we're going to bring back a whole DeFi summer 2.0. I want to go beyond that.
One other thing I was just thinking of while you were saying that this is a Pulsechain and Pulsex space is we should, and I'm going to start doing this, is going out to these subreddits that are there for the popular ERC20 tokens and letting them know that they've got their copies. I think that's one thing Hexicans should be doing, is getting out there and letting people know that they've got copies on Pulsechain to help spread the word and get the network used. I think the best way to go about it is probably reaching out to the mods first and help winning them over, because they'll just ban you. Does anyone know how the coin ranking sites are going to treat PRC20 tokens? Like any of them, like Nomics or CoinMarketCap? Like, is there going to be like a toggle button for ERC to PRC, or like how is that going to work?
There's something really cool that Richard R did with this. They're not a P SHIB coin, they're just SHIB. So odds are, if let's just say Pulsechain becomes wildly successful, in people's minds, you're thinking of SHIB here, SHIB there. It kind of plays to, hey, these are equal value. This is all blockchain. This isn't the inferior version. In fact, it could be the superior one. So I really like how he just said, okay, we're taking all the tickers, so, and if you were a ranking website, you don't have to change as much necessarily, because you could just have a toggle that switches networks, or you could just have them listed two different prices for the same ticker, right? So you just have another row basically that shows the different price on the other chain.
Yeah.
You got some Pulse for free, you got some Shiba for free, you got this for free, some Chainlink for free, some, and you get all these coins. Not that hard to switch over since you're already compatible with Ethereum. It's very easy.
The address compatibility, in my view, is like one of the best things about this project. Like, there's going to be no bitterness towards the project because you're not going to send your coins to the wrong account. Huge advantage.
Basically, the replay attack idea, which when you have the same addresses, then technically somebody could replay certain actions you do on one chain on another chain. So if you sent somebody one Pulse on Pulsechain, they could take that transaction and push it over to Ethereum chain. And then if you had Ethereum in that wallet, the same wallet, because it's all the same stuff, they take your transaction, push it through, and then they would be sending you one Ethereum on the Ethereum chain.
Not a lot of people are talking about the Icosa play right now, but as it sits right now, we got a big, basically like mini payday event coming up in like a month and a half, November 13th, whenever that is. And
one thing
right
I could say is
staking Icosa returns like 170% a year currently. That's without the big payday event.
To me, I think the whole Hedron system needs Pulsechain. To me, I believe that that's where it needs to live. It's a little bit more gas intensive. It's not horrible, but I can definitely see like we are pushing the number of transactions. We're doing more and more transactions as you use Hedron, HSIs. And you could tell like, wow, this is real DeFi, but my goodness, I'm paying $10 here, $5 there, $2 there. Before you know it, this is in a bear market with Ethereum. So I really want to see Hedron system, HSIs, the whole lot of it over on Pulsechain, because I think that's where you're not going to have to worry about using the system in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that statement, but I noticed that, was Icosa is about 10, 15 cents over what like quote unquote fair market value is based on its own calculation. It's supposed to be like $100 or $1.37, something like that. So I wanted to see what kind of like the arbitrage was like. So basically I took an ETH, bought a bunch of Hex, made an HSI max length, changed it to Icosa, took that ICOSA, sold it for hex, and I was making, I think it was like 50 hex a run. I was making 50 hex a run on one side and 2 ICOSA a run on the other side. But, gas fees obviously was eating that up. So yeah, I think on Pulse Chain it's gonna be nuts.
Yeah, we're gonna have tight bots, tight arbitrage events. Yeah, but you could tell, like, even doing those turnarounds, it's like, okay, I need Pulse Chain to do this because I want to keep all the profits to myself.
Oh, exactly.
Here's my understanding. So PLS is the fees goes to the validators, and 25% of the fees is burned. So the fee in that is PLS, right? Because you pay PLS as the fee. Is that right?
Yeah, the gas fee.
Okay. And with Pulsex, it's a percentage of whatever trade you're doing. So it's not PLS in this case, but it's bought from the market, right? It's bought from the open market. You have that function where it actually buys it from the market and then burns it. Is that correct? But that's not PLS. It could be whatever.
Correct.
So you think there's going to be a difference with regard to price pressure between the Pulsex buy and burn function and the Pulse Chain just burn function?
A giant difference.
Yeah,
a huge difference. Massive.
Yeah, I go into that quite often now. The 25% burn is the base burn. There is another protocol running in the background which will create a double burn effect where more will be burnt depending on the system state. Yeah, without purchasing it from the liquidity pool. So every transaction gets burnt there, but the Pulsex that gets burnt has to be bought out of the liquidity pools.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
But if Pulsex and Pulse Chain are as good as I expect them to be, what's the year-over-year adoption going to be? I mean, even if you start to just compound it at 50%, I mean, we're talking another 750,000 people the next year added onto the chain. If we're talking 100% adoption, we're up to 3 million the next year, kicking the crap out of Uniswap. And imagine what that does to the buy and burn if the volume traded starts to go up in the next bull run.
Cake is kind of the first mover, essentially, that Pulsex has taken a lot of its functionality from, right? The staking in pools for third-party tokens. So a horrible performing chart that is Cake. Cake's chart is absolutely terrible. It inflates by 80% a year. It's terrible. It's horrible. But the price action of Cake compared to Pulsex. So basically, I take the 3x that Cake has done since it's come out. It did eventually do a 45, but right now it's at like a 3x. And I've overlaid, like, what if Pulsex performed the same poor way? What does your sacrifice look like? It's a really terrible coin. It's incredibly inflationary. We're 100% deflationary. I can't even imagine what that price performance is going to look like on top of the APY from single site staking.
But there's advantages to launching in a bear market and having a chain that supports the asset, lower gas fees that aren't also ramped up. I think we'll see a lot of positive price action into the next bull run. Relatively, there'll be some arbitrage opportunities open. So if you know how to code arbitrage, or you know how to make your own front end to get access to some pools, you might be able to make a quick buck, a couple hundred, couple thousand.
For everybody listening, it's not a good idea to use any bridge other than the Pulse Ramp bridge that Richard's team is testing out or is building until it's been vetted. That's just best case scenario.
Yeah, pretty much like the whole reason that Richard made Pulsex is he invited Uniswap to come play on Pulse Chain, and they basically said, "Nuh-uh, we don't want to." So he had to make that out of Uniswap version 2, and even if they finally figure out that they're missing out, yeah, he's with the AMM buying out the clone so much that it'll cost them a butt ton to rebuy up the liquidity to deploy to actually match it, because basically scale, they'll be almost 1/1000 basically of the size of Pulsex. So would it be a bad thing to the network effect and Metcalfe's law growth Pulse Chain adoption if Uniswap wanted to come play with us finally? I don't think so.
True.
Richard Hart has alluded to that he or the OA or some big whale provided that V3 liquidity for Hex. And so it seems like it took Richard Hart probably a year to kind of come around to the idea of that, basically the new version of Uniswap. But I believe that now if you look at the liquidity of Hex or whoever's big enough to provide it kind of likes it. You've seen that Richard Hart sees good tech like limit orders, and he's trying to pull it into Pulsex so we can have that advantage, hopefully day one, right? So I don't know. He definitely wants Pulsex to be successful. No, I'm gunning for Christmas, man. Richard Hart is the Santa Claus of crypto, giving tree. I'm hoping for December 25th Pulse Chain launch.
Yeah, I thought it would be really fun for people, it'll get them excited, see their rank.
I think this is based on $13 billion, was it $13 billion? So including the Hex sacrifice from the OA. But so a whale would be 130 billion coins. This is for Pulse Chain. A shark would be 13 billion. A dolphin would be 1.3 billion. Squid 130 million. Turtle 13 million. Crab 1.3 million. And a shrimp would be 130,000. Oh, so this is based on user-owned supply. So 13 trillion PLS. So yeah, 130 billion PLS would be 1%. Yeah, for what it would take to be considered a whale of just the community-owned supply, not including the OA, because I think it's the entire community is a whale if you include the OA. Let me wrap this up really quick. So there's only 4 people that are whales in the Pulse Chain sacrifice. Only 4. 4 wallets. Some of those might be community wallets. So
I would say that every turtle, at least within the next 10 years, doesn't ever have to think about a thing called money ever again.